Well, the fallout continues from the terror attacks in Boulder. You remember the ones that they first denied even happened, denied were a terror attack at all. And now they're trying to blame Donald Trump for what happened. Don't worry about the facts. Don't worry about the truth. Just blame Trump. Keith Olbermann, with blood coming out of his eyes, made a full frontal attack on Donald Trump as the man responsible for what we saw in Boulder. We'll get to Keith in a second. But first, let's take a look at how CNN handled the conversation. Jake Tapper, America's finest journalist, he had Scott Jennings and David Axelrod on to talk about it. And, well, Scott Jennings laid out exactly what's going on with the political left in this country and how they laid the foundation for the horrific attacks that we just saw. And this is why the left needs to lie now and blame Trump. Watch how Jennings lays it out.
Well, I mean, this is horrific. And what more do we need to see, Jake, before we realize this Free Palestine movement is nothing more than a domestic terror organization right now? I mean, we had the killings in Washington a couple of weeks ago. We have this issue in Colorado. We've seen, the activities on college campuses now for months and months and months and months. The rise of anti-Semitism in America, the rise in the number of people who have come to America who hold anti-American views, anti-Western views, and anti-Semitic views, and are now willing to act on it. It is absolutely outrageous. And I think as a society, we need to understand we are dealing with domestic terrorism. It's growing more violent by the day. And if we don't deal with it, these kinds of things are going to keep happening in cities all over the place. It's awful. And we need to come to grips with the fight that we're in right now in America, a fight for the future of our country and the future of Western civilization.
Indeed, he's absolutely right. And not only Scott Jennings on CNN telling it like it is and the obvious truth that we can all see before our eyes, but my colleague from Townhall, Guy Benson, on Fox News almost simultaneously.
I saw an observer yesterday note that Hamas supporters aren't just burning American flags in our streets. They're now burning Americans in our streets. When we hear these chants of globalize the intifada by any means necessary, ringing out in our cities, on our campuses at these hate rallies, this is what it actually looks like in practice. It looks like a governor's mansion torched in the middle of the night with a Jewish leader sleeping upstairs with his family. It looks like 2 employees of the Israeli embassy in this city, our capital city, murdered in cold blood at a Jewish museum. And it looks like these elderly Jewish Americans firebombed at a peaceful rally on behalf of releasing hostages in Colorado. The pro-Palestine movement is a violent movement. The rhetoric is violent. They justify violence, they celebrate violence, and increasingly they are engaging in violence, not just over there. Here in the United States, it's a disgrace and it has to stop. I'm not sure anything will bring about change at Harvard unless they are forced to change. We see 2 students at Harvard in 2023 physically assaulted a Jewish student on campus. One of those assailants was just rewarded with a very generous fellowship at Harvard Law to go work at CARE, which is a hate group as far as I'm concerned. And another one was given this really nice position in the recent commencement ceremony at the Divinity School. These are people who physically attacked a Jew on campus and were rewarded at Harvard. So yes, to say that they have problems is an understatement, and you have to get their attention, and with strongly worded letters, not good enough.
Well said, Guy Benson. That's what you get over here at Town Hall Media. Good, clear, concise, fact-based analysis like you just got from Guy. The facts are the pro-Palestinian movement, which was obviously reinforced and supported by this terrorist in Boulder, Colorado, that is a creature of the left. It's a creature, actually, more specifically, of the Democrats in this country. They've embraced this movement. They're one and the same. Plus, add to that the fact that he was an illegal alien in this country, allowed in and allowed to stay despite overstaying his visa by the Biden administration. And you know for a fact that all fingers must point to the Democrats. And that's why, of course, the Democrats are lying. In fact, they're doing worse than that. Inexplicably, dumbfoundedly, completely without any fact or basis, they are blaming Donald Trump. Look at this guy. He's Chris Jackson. He used to work for Joe Biden. He's really now just a ex-troll. He responds to the New York Post headline that says Trump blames Biden's ridiculous open border policy for Colorado terror attack. He responds by saying BS. That's bullshit for those of you who are having trouble spelling. BS. He was here on a work permit that expired in March of this year. Why didn't Trump deport him then? If anyone's to blame, he needs to look in the mirror. Are you kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me? So let me get this straight. We've got tens of millions, well over 20 million illegal aliens just allowed in our open border, flown in on our own taxpayer dime, flown in from Venezuela and Haiti and Cuba, allowed into this country to stay and fester, given temporary status by the Biden administration. They kill, they rob, they murder, they maim, they rape, and everything's fine. Nobody gets deported. Trump gets into office, and for the last, 3.5, 4 months, decides to start systematically deport people who are in the country illegally. And we're going to start with the hardened criminals, the gang members, who the Democrats, of course, try to plead the case for and say, no, don't, you can't. You have to let them have their day in court. Give them due process. Don't deport them. They're only gang members. They're only drug dealers. They're only rapists. They're only pedophiles. You can't deport them. Now, this guy, who just 3 months ago had his visa expire, the visa that was given to him inexplicably by Joe Biden, and because Trump didn't deport him fast enough, it's his fault? What are you, insane? The answer is yes. Just look at their spokesperson, Keith Olbermann.
Now live on an all-new special Tuesday edition of the Countdown podcast, Blood on Donald Trump's Hands. The terror attack Sunday in Boulder, Colorado. The attempt to burn people alive for commemorating the hostages in Gaza. It is Trump's fault. It is Stephen Miller's fault. It is MAGA's fault. Because the attempt to remove so-called illegal aliens from this country has nothing to do with stopping terrorism or stopping people who might commit crimes. It is here merely to satiate the sadism of Trump and Miller and the psychopaths who support them.
Did he say so-called illegal aliens? What does that even mean? What a journalist. I do like the fact, though, that his body language and posture for this promo video for his podcast makes it look like he's wearing a straitjacket, because that's appropriate, I suppose. I'm going to start a draft Keith Olbermann movement right now. This is the guy who can save the Democrats in 2028. He is the perfect representative of what the Democrats stand for right now, and a very effective communicator, by the way. He's the only guy who can save the party. He should be the nominee. I know it seems crazy. I know it seems nuts. I know it seems fringe. But they're actually trying to work this in. They're trying to actually go with it. They're trying to convince you that Trump's responsible because he hasn't been effective enough deporting illegal aliens. Never mind the fact that Democrats have tried to stop this at every turn, and they've empowered their judges to try to block it at every turn. And then when ICE actually does effectively round people up and deport them, they claim that they're stormtroopers and fascists. But now the one guy they didn't deport, they say is his fault because he's a terrorist. You can't make it up. But surely they're not going to claim that this rising tide of anti-Semitism that we're seeing, that we've seen grow and fester and be supported by the likes of the Squad, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the elite faculties at Harvard and Yale and Brown, etc. Surely they're not going to make the case that Donald Trump's responsible for that, right? Right?
Also have to acknowledge, Abby, that the rise of anti-Semitism in the last decade can be correlated with the rise of Donald Trump. And the kind of language that he gives a permission slip for all of this anti-Semitic language to be used, in a way that we really hadn't seen before.
This is who they are. They've got nothing. They continue to have just one thing that they can talk about to try to rally support for themselves. and that is to hate Donald Trump, to oppose Donald Trump. And of course, I need to remind you every time that when they call Trump a fascist, when they call Trump Hitler, when they call Trump a racist, when they call Trump anti-Semitic, they're really saying it about you. Because if you support him, if you voted for him, listen, what do you call the guy who supports Adolf Hitler? You call that guy a Nazi. Well, that's what they're doing here. What do you call the guy who supports the anti-Semitic hate monger in the White House? Well, you call that person an anti-Semitic hate monger. Otherwise, why would they support Donald Trump as their leader? That's what they're doing here. And they still have nothing more to say for themselves, to celebrate who they are and what they stand for, because they stand for nothing except hating you and hating the man that you voted for. And now, when something so obviously is, a grown-up, mature political party would actually take a moment like Boulder, Colorado, and reflect for a moment and say, hey, guys, maybe we gotta downshift here. Maybe we're on the wrong side. Are we the baddies? As David Mitchell would say in the viral meme. Maybe we're the baddies. Maybe the guy who's chanting the exact same thing that the dirtbags with keffiyehs covering their faces on the campuses at Harvard are chanting, when that guy chants it after he's murdered a couple of people in cold blood in D.C., or after blowtorching and burning down the governor's mansion in Pennsylvania, or throwing Molotov cocktails at innocent elderly Jewish people, maybe if we're all chanting the same thing and they're violent anti-Semitic criminals, maybe we should downshift. Maybe we should tamp it down. Maybe we should look in the mirror and see what we're doing wrong and why we're aligned with them. But nope. All they've got and all they continue to have is hatred. Hatred at Donald Trump and hatred at you. And this is all they've had since Election Day. Really all they've had since the escalator trip in 2015. And so Trump's the president now. They continue to beat this drum. Is it working? Are the American people actually starting to buy this crap and actually believe their history after all this time, since it's all they've got? Is it working? Well, let's take a quick look at the latest polls.
After all of the waves, Keith Olbermann, after the last few months, the first 5 months of the Donald Trump presidency, right, the first 4 months of the Donald Trump presidency, that you expect that Democrats would have this massive lead on the economy. It ain't so. It ain't so. The party that is closest to your economic views, in November of 2023, it was the Republicans by 11 points. Now it's still within that range, still within that margin of error, plus 8-point advantage for the Republican Party. How is that possible, Democrats? How is that possible after all the recession fears, after the stock market's been doing all of this, after all the tariffs that Americans are against, and Republicans still hold an 8-point lead on the economy? Are you kidding me? If it was just this one CNN poll, that would be one thing. But take a look at Reuters Ipsos. What do we see here? Party with a better economic plan. Well, in May of 2024, just before Donald Trump was reelected president, Republicans had a 9-point advantage. Look at where we are now in May of 2025. The advantage actually went up by 3 points. Now Republicans have a 12-point advantage when it comes to the party with a better economic plan. And again, this is after months of supposed economic uncertainty, in which the stock market's been going bonkers, in which the tariff wars that Americans are against have been going on. And yet, despite all of that, the Democrats are down by 12 points on the economy. This speaks to Democratic problems on the economy better than basically anything that you could possibly look at. The Republicans still hold an advantage on the all-important key issue of the day, which is the party of the middle class, has been a huge advantage for Democrats. I have polling from NBC going all the way back since 1989, when Democrats had a 23-point advantage. 2016, a 17-point advantage. But by this decade, we already started seeing declines back in 2022, where you saw that Democrats led, but only by 4 points, well within the margin of error. And now in our latest CNN poll among registered voters, which is the party of the middle class, it is tied. This, I think, speaks to Democratic ills more than anything else. They have traditionally been the party of the middle class. No more. Donald Trump and the Republican Party have taken that mantle away, and now a key advantage for Democrats historically has gone adios amigos, and now there is no party that is the party of the middle class. Republicans have completely closed the gap, Kate.
That's right. And it's not just because of the good work that Republicans have done in refining their message and honing in on what people care about in this country. And I want to be honest here, as a conservative Republican, we have gone through quite a journey. You know, we were the party of the Bush family and the Romney family, et cetera. It does take some reflection. You know, when I say Democrats need to look in the mirror and figure out what they're getting wrong and how they're on the wrong side of issues and maybe correct course, I say that as a member of a political party who had to do exactly that. I remember being lost in the wilderness when Barack Obama was president, and I didn't understand why blue-collar working-class people were aligning themselves with an elitist party like the Democrats. Why do they identify with them? They don't have their best interests at heart. But I had to look in the mirror. We all, Republicans, had to look in the mirror and say, well, look at who we have represent us. Look at how we communicate ideas to people. And what have we done policy-wise to actually represent those blue-collar, everyday, middle-class Americans? And we had to correct course. But don't miss another important factor here, because Mr. Enton, as excitable as he may be, shot that entire poll result through the prism of economics. And I guess when you use terms like middle class, you suddenly have to default to economic policies, taxes and spending and wages and all that stuff. But let me tell you something. I feel like I'm pretty familiar with middle class people, considering I've been one of them my entire life. And when your political party says to the middle class in America that a man can get pregnant, you've got a problem that goes well beyond a living wage. When you look at the middle class Americans in this country and you say there is nothing wrong with importing labor from a foreign country because they're going to do jobs that you people won't do, you've got a problem with the middle class people in this country. Even worse, when you say to those middle class voters in America that we're not going to build anything anymore, we're going to build it in a foreign country because you're incapable of doing it, yeah, you've got a real problem. And those are primary messages that the Democrats embrace right now. That's who they are. And they can't find the way to move off of those core fundamental platforms. They think their problem is messaging. No, the problem is the message. Don't believe me? Take a look at another set of polls. President Trump continuing to surge while the Democrats flounder. 53.7% approval rating for the administration. Right now, this is based on the latest Trafalgar poll. Democrats have nothing to offer the American people. I mean, just look at that. Excuse me. 42.1% strongly approve of President Trump. 11.6% approve. That's a total of 53.7%. This is after story after story after story after headline after headline after fear-mongering, after lighting their hair on fire, telling you that Donald Trump is ruining the country, after the tariff nonsense, after the Doge stuff, after demonizing Elon Musk. After all of it, Trump continues to surge. And so that's why they're desperate. And that's why Keith Olbermann's their only answer. To actually defy logic, defy reason, defy common sense, tell you that what you see with your very eyes isn't true. Trump's responsible for Boulder, Colorado, even though you know that that's a lie. But they just can't shake it. I mean, it's an old habit to break. They did the same thing with Biden, telling you and assuring you that he was completely capable. And whatever you're seeing with your own eyes, don't believe it. It's not true. He's sharp as a tack. Well, when you spend that much time lying about something that's so obvious to everybody involved, it's kind of hard to immediately find the truth. So keep at it, Dems. I mean, you're digging your own grave, I guess, but you're right. It's all Trump's fault. Keep going. We believe you.